Welcome to Life Stories, where the unexpected always finds its way into the spotlight. Have you ever been told that you're nothing more than a joke? That you'll never rise above your past? Emma Brooks heard those exact words. She was a janitor, dismissed, ignored, laughed at. But what if the world got it all wrong? What if beneath the wrinkled dress and scuffed shoes was a woman with the power to shatter expectations and take back what was hers? The road ahead won't be easy, and the truth comes with a price. But one thing is certain: Emma won't let anyone tell her what she can't become. Stay with us, because what happens next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about strength, redemption, and the power of silence. Let's dive into Emma's story. Emma Brooks never thought she'd find herself here, at the heart of the city's most exclusive gala, dressed like a ghost of herself, hiding behind the veneer of a janitor's uniform. The Regency, a glamorous mansion nestled in the heart of Manhattan, was buzzing with wealthy donors, tech moguls, and high-profile artists. The air was thick with the scent of expensive cologne, glittering gowns, and the faintest hint of arrogance. At the center of it all was the grand piano on stage, a Steinway so immaculate it almost seemed to mock her presence. She stood just behind the stage curtains, her linen dress wrinkled from a day of cleaning, her flat scuffed from years of running the halls of the Regency. Her hair, once the proud reflection of youth and talent, was tied in a simple bun, a few stray locks falling around her face. The crowd would see her as nothing more than the hired help, a joke to fill in when the real talent had failed. And it was exactly what they expected. They wanted to laugh at her, a failed pianist turned janitor. But what they didn't know was that she wasn't always this way. There was a time when she commanded concert halls, when fingers as delicate as lace danced across piano keys like a language only she understood. At 17, Emma had been accepted into the prestigious Vaughan House Conservatory with a full scholarship. Her future seemed set in stone, until it all came crashing down. A drunk driver, a mother paralyzed, and the music world lost to her forever. But Emma had made a choice to step away from everything she had once been, to care for the woman who had given her life. Now she was here, not as a pianist, but as an invisible servant to those who thrived off others' misery. The Regency was a battlefield for power, and she was nothing but a pawn. She had heard the whispers as soon as she entered, the snickers and sharp glances thrown her way by people in fine tuxedos and glittering jewelry. They didn't know her story, and didn't care to. To them, Emma was just another piece of the background. But when the news broke backstage that Marcus Reed, the renowned pianist who was supposed to headline the event, had been hospitalized in a car crash, panic spread like wildfire. The gala's director, Evelyn Pierce, a sharp woman whose sharp eyes cut through everyone she met, was screaming orders at her assistants, her blonde hair flying around her face like a halo of impatience. Find someone. Anyone. We can't cancel. The press is here. The donors are here. Her voice cut through the frenzy. Emma, quietly wiping down the banister just outside the chaos, paused for a moment. Her fingers twitched. The haunting melody of Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 floated through her mind. A piece she had once mastered with ease, a piece that she could still play in her sleep. She froze in place, her heart thudding in her chest. Her hands, calloused and weathered from years of cleaning, clenched tightly around the rag, but it was too late. Sophie Clark, a young violinist with a kind heart, caught sight of Emma's stillness. Miss Emma. Sophie's voice broke through the noise of the staff scrambling to salvage the night. She can play. The words hung in the air, an absurd thought in the midst of madness. Laughter erupted in the room, cruel and condescending. Evelyn turned, her sharp gaze landing on Emma like a predator on its prey. Her? Evelyn scoffed. The janitor, please. You want to see a disaster? Fine, let her play. The jeers grew louder, crueler, as the staff snickered behind her back. But Sophie's gentle eyes never wavered. Emma could feel the weight of the room's laughter, the eyes that pierced her skin, but there was something else there too. Something deeper, something stronger. She had lived through worse. Emma walked toward the stage. The spotlight hit her like a floodlight, revealing every flaw, every tear in the fabric of her dignity. The audience, sipping their champagne, leaned forward, their whispers like knives. Someone in the back of the room snickered. "Is this the help?" "A joke." A donor's voice cut through the crowd. "This is a gala, not a charity case." Edward Vance sneered, his cufflinks flashing in the dim light. Emma didn't flinch. Her eyes, steady and determined, locked with Evelyn's. The challenge hung in the air like a bitter taste. "I can play," she said, her voice soft but unwavering. The laughter only intensified. "Play or leave," Evelyn spat. "Prove you're worth more than a mop or you don't belong here." Emma set down her rag. She knew what they were expecting, a disaster, a joke. The mockery would burn through her soul, but she would endure it. Her fingers trembled as they brushed the cold keys of the Steinway, but she steadied herself, her heart pumping with each note that was about to flow. The first chord rang out, and everything changed. What had been mockery turned into awe. The opening of Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 exploded from the piano, loud, defiant, a storm of sound that echoed through the grand hall. Every note was a strike back at the world that had tried to bury her. It wasn't just music. It was her vengeance, her soul, her years of silence and loss, all poured into one powerful, unforgiving performance. The crowd went silent. Phones that had once captured her humiliation now lay forgotten in their hands. Emma's fingers flew across the keys, moving with a precision that no one in the room had expected. The music was wild, ferocious, a reflection of everything she had lost, everything she had endured. She played with the force of a woman who had been hidden for far too long. By the time she reached the final chord, the room was still. It was a triumphant silence that hung in the air before the applause began, hesitant at first, and then like a flood. The crowd, once mocking, was now in awe. Some stood, others clapped, but Emma didn't need their validation. She had already claimed the stage as her own. How far would you go to prove your worth when the world has already written you off? Can one moment of triumph erase years of shame and silence? As the applause echoed in the hall, Emma's calm demeanor remained unchanged. The woman who had walked onto that stage as the punchline of a cruel joke now stood as its hero. But her story was far from over. Backstage, Evelyn Pierce's face was pale, her once imposing presence now dwarfed by Emma's quiet strength. And in the wings of the Regency, someone was watching, someone who would change the course of Emma's life forever. But who was it? And what would they offer her next? The world was watching, but was Emma ready to face what came next? The applause was still ringing in Emma's ears as she walked off the stage, the echoes of the crowd's admiration fading into the distance. The music had burned through her like a wildfire, setting her spirit alight with something raw and uncontainable. But as she passed the velvet curtains, the weight of what had just happened settled over her, and for the first time in years, she felt the sting of exhaustion, not from the performance itself, but from everything leading up to it. The months of silence, the years of hiding behind a mop and bucket, were they truly gone now? Backstage, the lights flickered dimly, casting long shadows against the walls. The rush of applause was slowly replaced by the dull murmur of voices, some congratulatory, others uncertain, like the calm before a storm. As Emma walked through the narrow hallway, a man in a tailored black suit stepped into her path. His presence was undeniable, a force that seemed to fill the space even before he spoke. "Emma Brooks," the man said, his voice calm but commanding. "You're every bit as incredible as they say." She didn't need to look up to know who he was. Daniel Vaughan, the billionaire founder of Vontae, a man whose name echoed in the halls of power and influence. He wasn't just anyone. He was the someone who had seen her performance. And his eyes were not filled with mockery, but something else entirely. Respect. She stopped, her heart suddenly racing. Was he here to offer her more mockery? Or was this something else entirely? "I've been following your story," Daniel continued, stepping closer, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "What you did tonight, it was more than just playing the piano. It was a declaration, a statement to the world. But what you don't know is that your battle is far from over." Emma's breath caught in her throat, but she said nothing, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. "I can help you, Emma. Daniel said, his voice low and steady. You have a gift that can change everything, but it will take more than just one night. It will take everything you have. For a brief moment, Emma's mind raced with the possibilities. A world of endless opportunities, of fame, of recognition, everything she had once dreamed of. But then, something inside her recoiled. She had spent so long hiding, so long keeping her past locked away, buried under the weight of her responsibilities. Could she really return to that life? Was she ready to step back into the spotlight, to leave behind the woman who had sacrificed everything for her family? Before she could respond, a voice interrupted the moment. Well, well, well. Evelyn Pierce's voice rang out with unmistakable venom. She stood at the end of the hallway, her eyes narrowed in disdain. If it isn't the janitor who thinks she can play piano. Emma's heart sank. Evelyn's words cut through her like a blade. There was no surprise in her voice, no attempt at hiding her contempt. She had expected this, but the sting still lingered, bitter and sharp. I think you've done enough for tonight, Emma, Evelyn continued, her smile a thin line of mockery. You've played your part, but this is my event, and your moment in the spotlight is over. Daniel turned to Evelyn, his eyes narrowing. I'm afraid you're mistaken, Evelyn. This is not your event anymore. This is Emma's moment. The world just saw who she really is. Evelyn scoffed. Oh, please. You don't actually believe that. You think one performance will change her fate? She's a janitor who's been hiding behind a mop for years. That's all she will ever be. The words struck Emma like a slap. She had heard it all before. The whispers, the laughter, the scorn. But it was different now. She wasn't that girl anymore. She had proven herself. Or so she thought. Was it all just a fluke? Was she truly capable of what Daniel was suggesting? A future beyond the mop, beyond the hidden corners of society? I've worked hard for everything I have, Emma said, her voice steady despite the tremor she felt inside. I may not wear the finest clothes or have a title to my name, but I am not a joke. Daniel's eyes softened, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. I know who you are, Emma, and I'm here to help you show the world who you really are. But Evelyn was relentless. You don't get it, do you? She snapped. This is a game of power, of who controls the narrative. And Emma, Janitor Brooks, is just a pawn. No matter what happens tonight, she will always be beneath us. The finality in Evelyn's voice struck Emma deep, as though a door she hadn't known was still open had just slammed shut. She was caught between two worlds, the one she had left behind and the one Daniel promised. But in that moment, she realized something. She didn't need Daniel to help her find herself. She had already found her strength, but the question remained, what was she willing to sacrifice to claim it? Evelyn's smirk remained, but Emma's resolve grew stronger. I'm not your pawn, Emma said, meeting her gaze with fierce determination, and I will never be beneath you. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with unspoken tension. Evelyn's eyes flashed with something dark, jealousy, resentment, maybe even fear. Emma had become something far more dangerous than a janitor. She had become a woman who could no longer be controlled. As Emma turned away, the weight of the night settled into her bones. But she didn't let it break her. She had taken the first step, a step that would lead her to something bigger than all of them. She would take back everything that had been stolen from her. Is Emma truly ready to embrace the power within her, or will the weight of her past drag her back? Can she outsmart those who want to keep her in the shadows? The final act of this battle was coming, and the true test of Emma's resolve had yet to begin. The days that followed the gala were a whirlwind of media attention, high-profile meetings, and people who wanted a piece of Emma. The world had seen her, really seen her, and it was like she had shattered the carefully curated image of the elites who had mocked her. No longer was she the joke, the janitor at the Regency. She was the pianist, the woman who had silenced the crowd with nothing but raw talent and years of pain. But as much as the applause and accolades filled her ears, Emma felt the ache of something deeper inside her. There was a part of her that couldn't shake the words Evelyn had thrown at her. You will always be beneath us. The sting of those words remained with her like a scar. And the more she thought about them, the more she began to wonder, what was it all for? Was she simply proving herself to the people who had once put her down? Or was she fighting for something more? Something that would truly free her? Daniel was still by her side, a quiet strength that anchored her. His wealth, his influence, had opened doors for her that she could never have dreamed of. But she didn't need his money or power to define who she was. She had already proven she was more than just someone's wife, more than just a product of his world. And yet, there was always that whisper at the back of her mind. Was she really free? One afternoon, as Emma sat in her small, quiet apartment, the phone rang. She had just finished teaching a young student at the Vaughn Music Academy, a place she had founded to give others a chance she had never had. Her fingers still trembled slightly, but not from nerves, from the joy of giving, of seeing her students flourish under her guidance. She was making a difference, finally. But as the phone call pulled her away from the room, her heart skipped a beat. It was from Sophie Clark. "Emma," Sophie's voice trembled on the other end. "I need to talk to you. It's important." The urgency in her voice made Emma's stomach drop. Sophie, a fellow musician at the Regency, had become a close friend, one of the few who had truly believed in her. But what could be so urgent? Sophie's next words confirmed Emma's darkest fears. "I found something out, something about Evelyn. You need to know. It's not just her bitterness. It's something much deeper." The next few hours were a blur of emotions, confusion, and a growing sense of dread. Emma had always known Evelyn to be ruthless, but Sophie revealed that Evelyn had been involved in something far more sinister than just wanting to destroy Emma's reputation. Evelyn had been sabotaging Emma from the start, making sure her career was derailed, holding her back when she tried to move forward. The story wasn't just about jealousy, it was about control. Control over Emma's talent, her future, her very identity. As Sophie detailed how Evelyn had been pulling strings behind the scenes, Emma's heart pounded in her chest. But there was more. Evelyn's connections, her schemes, had gone far beyond just her rivalry with Emma. Evelyn had been using the elite status of the Regency to manipulate artists, funneling donations and scholarships into her own pockets while exploiting the dreams of young musicians. Emma's mind raced. She had built everything she had on her own, but now she realized that Evelyn's manipulation had kept her trapped in a system that used her as a pawn, a system she had unknowingly been a part of for years. And yet, there was a deeper layer to it all. The thing that hurt the most was the realization that she had once thought Evelyn might have cared, that she had once believed that maybe, in some twisted way, Evelyn was just protecting her. But it was all a lie. Evelyn had used her, like so many others, to get ahead, to create the illusion of power. Emma hung up the phone, her mind spinning with the weight of what Sophie had shared. She sat on the edge of her bed, the room suddenly feeling smaller, the walls pressing in. She had fought so hard to prove herself, to break free from the chains that had bound her to the Regency. But now it felt as if the very thing that had freed her, her talent, her success, had become the tool that had kept her trapped. She stood up, the decision clear in her mind. She couldn't stay here. Not like this. She couldn't keep fighting just for the sake of proving her worth. The fight had to be for something bigger. For everyone who had been silenced. For every artist, every dreamer who had been crushed under the weight of the powerful. It was time to confront the truth, to bring down the walls that had kept people like her in the shadows for so long. The next morning, Emma stood outside the Regency, her heart pounding in her chest. She was no longer the girl who had been forced onto that stage. She was no longer the woman who had been silenced for so long. She was the storm that was about to hit. The press gathered in front of the building, their cameras flashing as they caught sight of her. Emma walked past them with her head held high. She didn't need their approval anymore. She didn't need anyone's validation. This was her fight, her victory. As she entered the building, the security guards stood at attention, but they didn't stop her. Emma had earned this. She had earned the right to stand tall, to face those who had tried to bury her. And she wasn't afraid anymore. She walked into the grand hall. The same hall where she had once been ridiculed, humiliated. The same hall where her future had been stolen. But today, everything was different. Evelyn stood at the far end of the room, her back straight, her face unreadable. But when she saw Emma, something in her changed. Her eyes widened, her lips parting as if to say something, but no words came. Emma's gaze met hers, and for a moment, everything was silent. The world, the crowd, the reporters, all of them were waiting for what Emma would do next. Emma stepped forward, her eyes never leaving Evelyn's. She didn't need to speak, she didn't need to say anything. The moment spoke for itself. With one final breath, Emma turned, leaving Evelyn and the building behind. It was over. The fight wasn't about taking down one woman. It was about creating something better, something that would last. She had finally reclaimed herself. What would you do if you found out that the people you trusted the most were the ones who held you back all along? Do you think Emma made the right decision by leaving it all behind? If you love this story, comment 100 to let us know. Where are you watching from? Don't forget to share this story with your friends, and thank you for watching Life Stories.